Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Britcham Energy Seminar. I'm very happy to be here for this opening session. My name is Vladimir Martins. I am a member of the Firjan Oil and Gas Business Council, Vice President of the Britcham Oil and Gas Committee, and the Business Director of RSM Brazil, sixth largest company in the world for consulting, tax, and audit service. My thanks to Firjan for the important support for the realization of the seminar, especially to Karina Fragoso and her team. So I'd like to invite everyone to see now a video message from Mr. Luis Caetano, Vice President of Firjan, President in Office, please.
Firjan is glad to host such an important event with high-level participants. Also, the discussion we are going to have today at this edition of the Britcham Energy Seminar, Managing the Transformation of Brazil's Oil Energy Sector, is of the most importance to Rio, Brazil, and the world. Brazil and Rio are major oil players in the world. But as there is a growing demand for more and more cleaner sources of energy, we have been developing solutions that can contribute to the world. Brazil is a country with an energy matrix with a big chunk of renewable sources, a differential when compared to other countries. So we can create solutions that only to improve our positioning, but also to develop solutions to supply other parts of the world. And that's what we are here for as Firjan, to help foster innovative solutions to matters that affect the sustainable development of the country and our industry and economy. Thank you all for being here. We hope you have a great morning of discussions.
Thank you so much. Enjoy our seminar.
Well, good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Britcham Energy Seminar, a traditional event that the Chamber runs in Rio annually. I am Ana Paula Vitelli, President at the Chamber Brazil level. It is a pleasure to welcome you all here today for this face-to-face activity. We ran the event last year on an online format, so it's a real pleasure to have you all here this morning with us. Before we get started, I would like to take the first few minutes for a tribute to Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. Britcham's board members and members of our executive committees and staff deeply regret the passing of Queen Elizabeth II late last week at the age of 96. Her Majesty the Queen will always be remembered as an extraordinary and unique woman who leaves an unparalleled legacy and that contemplated the defense of human rights and greater openness to diplomatic relations. The British Chamber in Brazil expresses our deepest sentiments to the British people that would be represented here today by Mr. Anjum Nourani, UK Consul General in Rio de Janeiro. Due to this moment of mourning, he could not attend this session in person, but sent us a message that I will now be reading to you all. So, message from Anjum Nourani, His Majesty's Consul General in Rio de Janeiro. It is with profound sadness that I cannot be with you today to mark the 18th Energy Seminar of the British Chamber of Commerce in Brazil. With the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the UK has entered a period of 10 days of mourning, of national mourning, my apologies here. In this period, as mark of respect to Her Majesty, the British Diplomatic Service is focused on ensuring an appropriate remembrance of her life and legacy and a transition to our new king. This theme of transition is also important in the context of energy. Today, the challenges of ensuring a safe, affordable, and clean energy mix are greater than ever. So our event today is extremely important. Securing Brazil's own energy transition and ensuring that Brazil helps the world secure a global energy transition are issues worth of debate and discussion. The UK stands ready to aid this effort, not least given King Charles III very public commitment over many decades to the issues of environment and sustainability. The British government has defined a 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, hosted COP26, and has worked with Brazil since 2019 on topics such as offshore wind. In future, we hope to continue this work with Brazil on hydrogen and in renewables financing, among other issues. But that is another day. For now, I would close by thanking, on behalf of the government, Britcham and Firjan for hosting this event and the sponsors for their support. God save the King. And before we get started, I will then kindly ask to everyone here to stand up, and we're going to have a 1 minute of silence in respect to Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you very much. And then I now formally welcome everyone to the 18th edition of our energy seminar organized by the Chamber. This edition, we're going to have the focus, we're going to be focusing on the topic of managing the transformation of Brazil's all energy sector. So it is again with great honor and pleasure that we welcome you all here. I'm going to start making a few remarks here in terms of thanking those who have been engaged in organizing this event and being with us. So first, my thanks goes to the Federation of Industries of the State of Rio de Janeiro, Firjan, in the name of its council member, Vladimir Martins, who's also Vice President of Britcham's Oil and Gas Committee. Thank you for the partnership and for having us here. Our sponsors to this event, BP, represented here by Adriano Bastos and other representatives, thank you. Shell, represented by Monique Gonçalves and other representatives as well, and of course, the UK government. I would also like to thank the support of Firjan and the Energy Industries Council, EIC, represented by Clarice Rocha and other representatives. Hello, Clarice, good to see you here. Other representatives from EIC. Also, thanks to Fábio Caldas, who's also the Vice President at the Chamber. Thank you, Fábio, and Renato Cordeiro. So Fábio and Renato, they act as President and Vice President of the Power and Renewable Committee. And Carlos Peixoto. Carlos, do I see, where is you? I can't see you. There, Carlos Peixoto, President of the Oil and Gas Committee for organizing this event. So this is an event led by two of our committees. Hello, Carlo, I now see you there. Thank you. For our committees at the Chamber, so energy committees at the Chamber. I'd like to also thank Nick Burridge, the president of our filial in Rio. Thank you for being here, Nick. Britcham's executive team and for the support and organize this event. We have a whole team of Britchams here making all this happen. And of course, our members, partners, and all of you, each one of you here today. Thank you very much. And then just a final words, just briefly mention to you about the Chamber. So the Chamber, the British Chamber of Commerce in Brazil is a 105-year-old institution which have been acting as the focal point for the UK-Brazil business community, providing relevant forums such as this forum, so forums to foster bilateral trade, investment, services, and networking opportunities. We have a national presence in Brazil, being in São Paulo, Rio, Paraná, and Minas Gerais. At the Chamber, we gather major UK business investors in Brazil in a variety of industries, such as energy, pharmaceutical, technology, services, finance, manufacturing, just to name a few of those industries which are with us at the Chamber, having companies represented there at the Chamber. We work closely with the UK government in Brazil, operating through a series of industry committees covering key industries in the country as well as areas of expertise across industries. So just to mention once again, the Energy Committee is one of our committees at the Chamber, and then who's leading actually this initiative today, which is a very traditional initiative at the Chamber. I invite you all to check our website at britcham.com.br to learn about what we do and how each one of you can engage further with the Chamber. I now formally declare that our 18th Britcham Energy Seminar is opened, and I wish you all a great event. I will now pass on to Fábio Caldas, who will act as the moderator to our first panel. Fábio, thank you very much for your attention. Have a great morning with us. Thank you, Fábio.
It's good to see it so full here. Finally, we're back to presidential activities in Rio. I'm Fábio Caldas, Vice President of Britcham in Brazil, President of the Power and Renewables Committee, and also the founding partner of LS Lightsaber, consultancy on non-technical risks, communications, and institutional relations. Again, many thanks to all of you. You know, I will not repeat Anna, you know everything here, but to sponsor, supporters, speakers, the audience here for making it all possible here. It's really quite an emotional moment because of the Queen, and also being back to presidential activities, as I said. This first panel will focus on the new mix of energy sources, and we're going to have 1 hour here with presentations from the 3 speakers. I'm seeing them here. Daniel's here. They are here. I will introduce to you in a minute a session, and then we're going to have Q&As, questions and answers. The questions can be made live with a microphone. We have people with mics here around the chairs here, around the audience, or written. It could also be done written and given to the staff, right? And I'm going to read them here if they are made in writing. In any case, we kindly ask you to identify yourselves and the company you represent, but I do ask you here, do not miss the opportunity, it's not in the script here, the opportunity to make questions and interact with speakers and colleagues at the networking. We're going to have a networking break after the session here. I'll introduce the speakers now. Mr. Adriano Bastos, thank you for being here. Adriano, very nice to see you again. He's graduated in electrical engineering at Universidade Federal Fluminense, Federal Fluminense University, I think this is his translation. In 1986, he joined the oil and gas sector in 1988, first at Halliburton, and then moved to Schlumberger, where he held various positions in Brazil and abroad, starting as field engineer and then moving to leadership positions. In 2013, he joined GE Oil and Gas as Brazil Director, based in Rio. In 2017, he came to BP, being responsible for the oil and gas Brazil. In 2020, he became Senior Vice President for the Angola region, and returned to Brazil in April 2022, always supporting the chamber and the events, I remember, a long time. So returned to Brazil in April of this year as head of country to integrate BP's business in Brazil. Please, Adriano, please take a seat on the stage. This is going to be the first presenter. Thank you so much. Now it's her. It's Mrs. Monique Gonçalves. Has 22 years of experience at Shell, BG Group Enterprise Oil, and I think I know you for these 22 years. I've known you in the areas of GR, government relations, and regulatory affairs. In the last 5 years, she led Shell Brasil's energy transition program. I didn't know that, Monique. As well as the climate agenda support to the renewable business and nature-based solution, NBS. Monique is graduated in law by Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, UFRJ, UFRJ, with specializations in regulation and management of oil and gas business by FGV RJ, Fundação Getúlio Vargas, Rio de Janeiro. Please, Monique, take the stage. It's really a pleasure to see you back here. I didn't make any joke. So Daniel, welcome indeed. Daniel Hiller is currently leading the business at Subsea 7 in Brazil as region VP. He has worked for about 20 years in the oil and gas industry in the segment of subsea infrastructure solutions, holding a number of execution and commercial roles. Hiller also spent a few years as entrepreneur and volunteer on the areas of manufacturing and education. I found it quite interesting, education. Didn't know it all. So Daniel's Brazilian, has an engineering background. Please take a seat on the stage. Thank you so much for being here, the three of you. Now I'm going to rush to my place here and give the stage to Adriano. We're going to follow the order that you see the pictures in the leaflet. Adriano, Monique, and Daniel. Thank you so much. Adriano, over to you.
Okay. First of all, good morning, everyone, and many thanks to all of you to be here. It's a sad moment for all of us, especially for BP as a British company. We feel really saddened by the passing of the Queen. But talk a little bit about the subject today. Can you put the presentation on? A little bit. So I will start and they join us with the presentation later. They ask us to discuss a little bit the energy transition, the energy mix. A couple years ago, we started a new journey, and BP reinvented themselves. We moved, can you, one slide please? And we moved and announced our pledge to move from an international oil company to an integrated energy company. BP has been an international oil company for the past 111 years, if I'm not mistaken. From that period, we concentrate our efforts in the production of our resources, to find the resources and to produce new sources. 2 years ago, with the pledge to become a carbon neutral, a carbon zero company in 2050 or before, we decided to reinvent ourselves, decided to focus ourselves on the new energies. And we set up a strategy in order to deliver. And we're going to be fast, this transition? The answer is not, due to the size of the problem and the scale of the company. But we are working on it, and we set a strategy. Next slide, please. That's based in 3 pillars. First, a resilient hydrocarbons. Second, convenience and mobility. The third one, the low carbon energy. The resilient hydrocarbons. And we announced that we're going to reduce our total production over time. With that, gave us the opportunity to upgrade our portfolio, to move from areas when we have lower returns and higher carbon intensity to areas where we have higher returns and lower carbon intensity. We're going to focus on our customers. That's where convenience and mobility plays the game. Delivering the energy the world needs in a clean, affordable, and reliable manner. The third part of our strategy is continue to focus on a low-carbon energy matrix. We continue to invest, and we're going to continue to increase our investments in what we call the renewables. We're trying to bring the intensity of our activity to a lower as possible level. And everything is based on our sustainability. What means sustainability? We care about the environment where we do operate. We care about the society where we operate. And we're going to provide the energy the world needs based on this platform. On the resilient hydrocarbons I mentioned before, we're getting our portfolio completely reviewed and continue to focus on areas where we can produce at lower cost and the lower cost to the environment with the lower carbon intensity. The convenient mobility is how can we electrify the society that we live on? How can we provide the energy in the format the society needs, decarbonize our way of living. Our society is carbon hungry. And the low carbon energy, we continue to invest, and we're going to show you throughout the presentation our goals and aims to continue to develop the renewables in order to bring the overall matrix to a lower as possible carbon footprint. And the next, please.
If you wish to pass the slides, it's also fine. Or you can just simply say next.
I'll say next. Okay, fine. It's simpler. We made the pledge a couple of years ago, and we have some milestones, and we set milestones in 2025 and have 2030 aim with the goal to get to 2050 as a neutral carbon. And we split again in three for some odd reason. One is net zero of our own operations. The operations that we do from producing oil and gas, refinery, and everything that BP does by itself. We set the target reduction on 20% by 2025. By last year, we already reached 35% reduction. The net zero productions as a second pillar is because we adding all the emissions of the operations that we do not operate. So we don't mask our carbon footprint when you make a JV or we have association with other operations. So we bring every single piece of carbon into the account because our goal is to be a real net zero to the society where we do operate. On that one, we have set a target 2025. Last year, we were at 16% already on that goal. And the third one is a net zero of sales, meaning a reduction of the carbon of the products that we sell, the energy that we sell to the society in the areas we do operate. Was a 5% reduction. We are flat, so there's work to be done in that one. Next, please. So on a net zero of operations that we do operate, 35%. On the total production, 16. We have already 4.4 gigawatts in renewables that being executed. We have the FID on that. We continue to increase our investment from 750 million from a couple of years ago to 2.2 billion right now. We're creating a net impact on biodiversity in order to improve the environment and care for the society where we do operate. And also been partnering with some cities where we can create solutions related to mobility, a more efficient use of energy. Because a lot that we do, a lot of the carbon that we generate is because of our inefficiencies. I mean, the traffic jams is a good example of that. So we can resolve the paradigm of urban mobility, we can reduce a lot our emissions. in that sense. Next. Let's talk a little bit about Brazil. Now, we've been here for over 60 years. Can you next, please? So let me explain a little bit what we do and how this transformation to a lower carbon is being applied in Brazil. From left to right, we have RBP. We have around 16% market share on the aviation fuels in Brazil. We are investing in developing SAF, sustainable aviation fuels, with some existing technologies and some ones that others that we're trying to develop. One using ethanol as a feedstock for SAF. On trading, we have our trading desk on power and fuels, and also developing a low-carbon trading desk in Brazil. Brazil, it is another source of carbon credits, and there is a market, a global market for that, and BP wants to develop and participate on that one. Castrol, Castrol is a brand that has higher recognition in lubricants, and our participation in wind, and also on all the new renewables. It is important that Castrol continue to be in the forefront of the lubricants business. On P&O is our former upstream. We have 10 blocks, 10 exploration areas in Brazil. We operate 5 of them, and we partner with Petrobras in all the 5. We just announced success in Alto Cabo Frio Central is a public information. And why that is important? Because Brazil production is around 40 to 60% lower carbon index than the global average. So it's part of a strategy of resilient hydrocarbon. Increase the production in Brazil and reduce in other areas like we did in Angola recently. NFC is a trading that we provide few solutions for marine. Opla and BP Bunge is a combination. One is basically logistics, to improve logistics in the way we operate in Brazil. BP Bunge is the second largest ethanol producer and is one of the pillars for our bioenergy diversification. We're quite proud of it. Light Source BP is our arm that creates solar projects developments in Brazil. We already have 3 projects. We continue to look for new ones. And GNA is our is becoming the largest power plant in Latin America, the complex. We have one plant is 1.3 gigawatts. We're building a second is 1.7. Our aim for this site is 6 gigawatts. Yeah, we have probably I'm mistaken, but I believe we still have the only private regasification terminal in operation in Brazil. Addressing this one, we have a FSRU, is a partnership with Prumo and others that has, I think, a capacity around 28 million standard cubic meters a day of regasification. So the solutions that we bring in order to participate on the Brazilian matrix in terms of energy, and you see that we cover the large spectrum. And I was focused on how can we continue to increase efficiency and reduce carbon footprint in everything we do. Next, please. And there is not an aspirin, I like to say. There is not a silver bullet to solve the issue of the energy transition. It's based also in 3 paradigms. It need to be affordable, need to be reliable, need to be accessible in order for to be successful. So in everything we do, we put carbon as integral part of our decision-making process. And we try to remove carbon from everything we do, from the planning to execution. And these criteria help us to focus on the decarbonization of the project the same way we do on the project management. If you put the next slide, please. This slide is not different from any other that we have seen in project management. And how can you deliver a project in the most efficient manner? But we're using the same concept and the same platform in order to keep carbon as one of the most important decision criteria of our project. And with that, we continue to deliver reduction of our emissions, continue to reduction of our impact on the environment. Emission is only one part of that. We have water, we have all the others natural resources that we continue to consume in a much faster rate. Our society consumes much faster rate that the environment is able to replace it. And carbon is one of them. And we bring carbon to the table, we bring carbon to our decision-making criteria in every single step of everything we do, from the pre-project to operations. With that, we have been delivering on our promises. And it's a difficult time for us at BP because we need to perform while we transform. The oil and gas sector, the P&O, needs to deliver in order to finance the transition. We need to execute the transition in delivering our target, our promise to the market, and at the same time delivering the clean energy that the world needs. So we have a decade ahead of us, and it's not the right thing to do, but this is what we must do for our society, for our investors, for our employees, and for the environment where we do operate. And this is a quick explanation what BP set up itself to do and how we are delivering on our promises. Thank you.
Hello. Huge portfolio, huge portfolio. And now another huge portfolio. Monique, over to you. Please do make your questions, right? Write it down or just think about it. We're going to have stuff later. Let's go to the presentation. Then we go for the Q&As. Thank you. Monique, over to you.
Thank you, Fabio. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here representing Shell. For us, this is a very good opportunity and event that we are proud of sponsoring. Every year, I hope now we get to have this event on a yearly basis again. Well, I have a presentation, but I want just to start off talking a bit about energy transitions, because I think that we've been learning with this for in the past years. I guess the Paris Agreement has been the call for the whole, of course, world and for our sector for energy, because this is part of the conversation. Climate change is probably one of the major challenges that our industry has been facing in the past years. But I think there is one thing that I've learned since I started, following this conversation about 6 or 5 years ago. All right, how do I do that? Okay, I'll try. There is one important thing, which is about 5 years ago when we heard about energy transitions, there was one thought, which was we need to stop fossil fuels and we need to go renewables. That was a bit of the concept that in general people had. And I think that in the past 5 or 6 years, we've learned that there is not going to be one solution. This is going to be a plus, or and, this and this and that. And I'm saying this because I think that and in our strategy, if you can go next, oh, sorry, I'll try this now. Not this one. Oh, yes, I've got the power. Oh, this is meant to tell you that you should not buy Shell shares based on what I'm going to say, okay? That's the legal disclaimer. So last year when we announced our strategy, this is Shell's global strategy, I think the main message here is we are going to be a net zero emissions business by 2050. And I like to say that as good Brazilians, we should not think about this in 49. We should think now, otherwise we are going to do like, oh, we need to do this next year, now we've got a year. But the important message here is that when we look at generating shareholder value, it has always been, the purpose of any business, in my view. But the difference here is that our shareholders, they have changed it because they want something different now, from our company. They tell us that they need to see actions. They need to see that we are really doing something. And what we did last year, we presented this strategy, but also an energy transitions plan. And we put that for vote, for their vote. And we had 89% approval, which I think is good, because it's good to have, some criticism and some push. This is important. But this year, when we got back to them to present the progress of our strategy, that was really welcome by them. And I think powering lives and respecting nature, this is the base case for any business. But this is how we plan to get to 2050. Yeah, of course, we do have climate targets. The message that I want to pass here is about the outcomes, not the target itself. Because last year we said, we are going to sell products with that percentage of intensity, carbon intensity, lower year by year until 2050. But last year, we have already made progress. We've reduced the carbon intensity of the products, the energy products that we sell by 2.5%. So we really need to make it in that progressive way. And the second target that we put was the absolute target of our absolute emissions. It means, I'll tell you one thing that is important. When we look at our emissions, we see that less than 10% of our emissions come from our operations, come from anything that we produce as emissions from what we do. Over 90% comes from the emissions that our customers, when they burn, the fuels that we sell, the emissions that they produce. So this is a big challenge because we need to change the products that we sell. Otherwise, we are going to get to the same result. So that's the premise of our strategy. We know that we need to change the portfolio. But one thing that is important, coming back to what I said first about fossil fuels, we have also learned that we will need oil and gas for decades to come. The difference here is that, and we have it in the next slide, I guess, this is a bit of the examples that we have in our energy transitions strategy. We know that, first of all, our oil production will decline 1 to 2% by year for the coming years. It means that we are reducing from about 40 countries where we operate in oil and gas to 9 countries, 9 strategic countries. And how are we going to select these 9 countries? By the best outcome they can provide us in terms of lower carbon intensity, lower costs, lower impact. And the good news here is that Brazil is one of these countries. We'll keep producing oil in Brazil because the world will need that. But this is a big challenge because we need to do this in the best, performance way. The other thing is about gas. This is part of our strategy because we see that in our transition pillar as an important replacement for a number of other fossil fuels. We see that as a good base case, for instance, for the growth of renewables. And in Brazil, we do have a lot of examples related to energy security related to that. So we do have natural gas shift, but also the growing of that share in our production. More than oil that is going to reduce year by year. And we do have a set of, a menu of new opportunities that we are pursuing. I don't want to spend time here because I want to talk about Brazil. This is important. I mentioned Scope 3 emissions, which is how our customers are going to use our products. So we need to work with them, especially the hard-to-abate sectors. I'm talking about shipping. I'm talking about aviation, heavy duty. Some sectors, industry, some sectors that rely on fossil fuels that we will need to work with them because there is impact on costs, infrastructure, a number of policies that will need to be shaped to make that transition. Okay, so Brazil now. I spoke about oil, right? And we do have in Brazil 2 well-established business. And I'm talking about, we've been in Brazil now for 109 years, primarily in downstream with the fuels distribution. And we've been developing deep water for the past 25 years here in Brazil. And this is a world-class investment for Shell in the world. I mentioned that we'll keep producing oil in 9 countries, and Brazil will be one of these countries for for many years to come. There's a bit about, how much we pay in Brazil in government take. This is also important, I think, for the country's social and economic development, of course. And we've got about, now more than 39, about 40 contracts in place in Brazil. We also have Horizon, which is the JV that we established 11 years ago with Cosan. It's a 50-50 JV where we produce biofuels, which is, again, the second largest cash engine for Shell in Brazil, and we will keep growing this business. And Horizon is also going through a major change, major transformation. They've been investing in biomethane. They've been investing in second-generation ethanol. And also, I don't know if you know this, but EVs, electric vehicle charging points. This is, and I like this picture because I put, the traditional gas station that we know. And this is a very nice picture, by the way, the view of Pão de Açúcar, the sugar loaf, here in Rio de Janeiro. But we've got this new, launched last June in São Paulo, the recharge point for EVs. This was the first one, and Horizon is going to launch another 35 EV charging points next year. Does it mean that we are going to move away from biofuels to EVs? Remember that I said that this is a plus, and. So we need to think about all the solutions, that our customers, of course, are ready to pursue, and we need to offer them this opportunity. So now about new things. Of course, I spoke about cash engines, established business, Brazil, by the way, Brazil is one of the top 4 countries in terms of investments of the group for not only biofuels, but also deep water, oil and gas. But last year, we have also been ranked top 4 for renewables. So this is very important because we are competing with many, 70, Shell is present in 70 countries. So competing for those, for that money, for that capex, and bringing that to Brazil is absolutely highly important for us. And we have an energy trading company in Brazil since 2017. This is important because we are already trading energy here in Brazil in the free market, and also gas with the opening of the gas market. And I'm looking at Ardengue because IBP played a very important role in the advocacy for the opening of the gas market. And we have also started this year trading gas in the market. But we have also some new projects under development in solar, onshore. We've got about now 4.5 gigawatt of projects under development in Minas Gerais state, in Paraíba, and Goiás. We expect that, at least the first of them to come on stream in 2025. It's quite fast, which is a different scenario for the offshore wind, which is also very important. We have applied for 6 areas for environmental permits in Brazil, in 6 areas. And I say that this is a bit different because, of course, the time of development of these projects could take 7 to 10 years to develop. But we believe that we need to start now. And that's why we are positioning Shell in Brazil also in the offshore wind opportunity. I saw that Bruno from Mark is going to talk in the next panel, so I believe he will be able to talk more about Marlim Azul, the gas-fired power plant that Shell is developing together with Patria and Mitsubishi in Brazil. This is part of the solutions that I mentioned. We've got gas from the pre-salt that we are coming to onshore for the power plant, and this is coming on stream next year. Yes. Nature-based solutions. Well, this is important because we are also investing in solutions like reforestation, like protecting the forests and a number of other activities in that area because we want to offer our customers the opportunity to offset their emissions while we are making this transition. And I'm saying while because we are not going to replace, our emissions or to say we are going to keep, producing oil while you can buy carbon credits. That's not the idea, that's not the solution. what we want to tell them is, while we are offering you some new opportunities, you can also offset your emissions with carbon credits. This is part of, and again, this is a technology that has been in place for billions of years. Nature knows how to do that, and we are taking advantage of that too. This is the last slide that I wanted to mention. We've got this R&D clause, research and development clause from ANP contracts in Brazil. Shell has to invest. This year, it will be about 100 to 108 million dollars. And the decision that Brazil, this was a decision from our leadership in Brazil, was to invest at least 30% of that in energy transitions projects. That's going to increase, but these are some examples of what we've been doing with this budget. We launched in May, we announced in May with Porto do Açu, this initiative to create this green hydrogen lab in Porto do Açu. This is going to be very important because we are going to start with a 10 megawatt project that can come up to 100 megawatt in the next 5 years. And we want to learn with that experience. You know, we want to build a capacity with our value chain, to learn with them, with the technology, so that we can think of connecting that to those offshore wind opportunities that I mentioned late. We also announced last month, this was a very interesting partnership with Creotech and IMPA, which is a solution to apply in the native species of the Amazon to capture more CO2. So if nature is already there doing, the sequestration of CO2, can we help those native species, to speed up this process? So this is one of the projects. And the last one that I want to highlight was launched last week, I guess, the beginning of September, which is a partnership with Ryzen, USP, Senai, Hytran. It's a new technology that is going to make the reform or the transformation of ethanol into hydrogen. So we are going to apply this technology. It's quite hard nowadays to transport, the products from hydrogen, for instance, ammonia. This is still a very challenging activity. So the idea here was to have the Ryzen's, stations, ethanol stations at USP University, at their campus. So they're going to apply this technology. It's a kind of a small device, that is going to make the transformation of ethanol into hydrogen and fuel the buses, the bus that they run into the campus of USP with hydrogen based on that technology. Of course, we want to scale that up, but it will depend on the results of this technology. So I just wanted to give you some examples which are totally at hand, things that we can do with the budget that we have that really can make a transformation of our business in the future. So this is a bit of what we are doing also. Oh, yes, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Monique. Both Shell and BP, I'm very impressed, with very consistent and well thought, I think, strategies and portfolio. We can clearly see there, but I would like maybe later, if the audience does not ask questions, which I do really invite you to start writing it down. How does Brazil fit, provide some comments more in terms of the global strategy. Now we go for, thank you so much for both of you, Monique, you too. Danielle, now it's over to you. I'm very curious about Subsea 7, I confess, because Shell and BP I already know something, but Subsea 7 less.
Okay, good. I will do my best. So thank you, Fabio, and thanks to the Britcham for the invitation. And good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you. Thanks for your attention. I think I will do different. I will stand up to change a little bit the dynamics. So,
if you want to pass the slides,
I'll use this. Can you turn on this mic? I just have to get rid of this. Okay, so Subsea 7, right?
I will talk about the energy mix from a bit different perspective. We follow our clients, Shell, BP, and now others, now in this broadening of the market from oil and gas to energy. So is it a commodity? Is it a utility? What's happening is a lot happening in the change of how this market evolves. And so the way I put the presentation was give a bit of some information of context about Brazil market in some of these sources of energy, and talking about how Subsea 7 makes possible this transformation, really, because we try to build the infrastructure to support our clients on their energy portfolio. So, yeah, so Subsea 7 is a global leader on subsea systems to support energy production offshore. And in line with the acceleration of the energy transition and all the plans we've seen here, we've updated our vision, which is now to make possible this transition of the energies offshore in the sea, where is our place. And we do that by trying to create value and with solutions that build the infrastructure needed to make this energy flow from where they are produced to the consumers. And our strategy has basically two big areas. One of them is the lower carbon oil and gas portion, where we still have a lot of subsea conventional activity. We cover also the life of the fields, and we are trying to electrify everything we can. And the other area of focus is the renewable energy, renewables and the new energies, where we see the offshore wind, we see carbon capture, and we see hydrogen as a new source of energy. About Brazil, quickly, Subsea 7 believes in Brazil. Subsea 7 is in Brazil for many decades, close to 4 decades, with significant presence. Now about 1,400 people, a number of assets, significant footprint, and really being in the forefront, developing ultra deep water solutions with many firsts of the industry here in Brazil. And we plan to use this expertise to the new energy sources and systems that are coming up now. And I think there is a lot of engineering capability, project management capability, and working on the sea to be transferred to this new energy playground. So I share a bit of how we see the demand. Of course, this is research data, it's not Subsea 7 data, but just to make the point that I think most of us believe that the energy demand will keep growing and plateau at a point. Even with the reduction from the vehicles and transportation, the industry and the manufacturing will continue to demand energy, but certainly the mix of energy will change. We can debate about how fast that will happen, but soon, in a few decades, the fossil fuels will shift from being the majority source to being less than half of the source of energy. So this is coming. And what that means for us, so this is a view of what it means for the offshore world. So as we see here, we offer a vision from Subsea 7, basically with 4 key elements. The offshore, the oil and gas will remain there for many decades, but more and more focusing on the lowest intensity emissions. We have the carbon capture as an important vehicle to sequestrate CO2 from the offshore activities, but also from the onshore plants and industry. They could be routed back and put under the seafloor in a kind of a reverse process. We also have the fixed and floating wind as a clear area and source of energy. And then we have the nitrogen as a liquid and transportable source of energy that's coming up as a niche that seems to be very interesting. So again, setting the scene about Brazil, Brazil has a huge potential. As we see here, the production curves is set to grow maybe to 4 or 5 millions of barrels. That could place Brazil as a top player in the world in terms of the producer ranking, perhaps the 5th and almost a 4th of the offshore global production. So it's a really relevant position, and with the pre-salt being the main part of it, which has high productivity, has a resilient cost to produce, and also a lower intensity, a relatively lower intensity compared to others. That's why BP and Shell mentioned that they keep investing in Brazil on oil and gas. And then there is the what else there is to come, you know, there is the unknown other frontiers. Are we going to be able to explore that? Are we going fast enough? So this is something of how we see. And then there is the gas portion, also set to growth. It's pretty abundant in Brazil on the pre-salt reserves. It's set to grow maybe twofold, so the importance is there. The relevance is there and could be a source of stabilization for our renewables energy system to bring stability to the variability that these other sources of energy has. And some technologies will be important there, how to separate the CO2 from the gas and how to capture the gas that is emitted from the use of this gas. So then moving about how to tap into these resources, we need solutions to make possible the energy transition. So the industry is working on several initiatives, technologies, and solutions. I speak for some that Subsea 7 is doing, that starts with the development planning, really applying expertise and considering the carbon footprint from day one. So that's very important that we can pick the optimum solution and architecture for an energy system offshore. We can also deploy the projects in an integrated manner and also track how this project, how this infrastructure is built and is operated with digital platforms to know the performance, see if they are fitting what we thought on design. And a bit about the operations, the way we implement this infrastructure is also important. You know, as we operate offshore, we use a lot of vessels and vehicles. So to have them being hybrid or have them with less polluting fuels, and we operate remotely from onshore, all that helps to reduce the carbon footprint. And also, there is a lot that can be done on electrifying the subsea systems, both for oil and gas or for wind or renewables, and treat the gas or treat the resources more close to where they are produced. That also saves a lot of carbon, and we are involved already in some projects such as that, and on carbon sequestration projects as well. We have a few projects running, one particularly in Norway. So moving again to another source of energy now on Brazil, renewable energy. The renewable energy and focusing on the wind specifically here. This picture on the left shows the Brazil potential with 3 hotspots, let's say, in terms of wind intensity along our coast. So we can clearly see that there are more or less three areas, one in the northeast, one in the southwest and south of the country. And since the bill and the legislation made some steps forward, the pace of projects being filing for license, some were mentioned here by the colleagues here in the panel, it's really exploded, and the numbers are huge. The players are increasing, and the big question is about the offshore. Will these projects be economic, and when they will come through? Because of course we have a lot of potential onshore as well to explore before we go offshore. So there is what will be the game changers for the offshore projects to be really viable economically. Certainly the scale is one aspect. What markets this will service is another aspect. So several things to consider there for how these renewables will reach offshore. And one niche that seems that Brazil is competitive. I bring here a view from Bloomberg about the niche of producing hydrogen powered by renewable energy sources, and shows Brazil really on #1 here in terms of competitiveness globally. This is showed powered by onshore renewables. So if we power by offshore renewables, we need to see where our competitive is, but certainly there is a potential there to be explored. There are some hydrogen hubs forming up. We saw some of them also commented here earlier. So it's an interesting market that again needs solutions and things to put it in place. And here I also bring again from the Sub7 group perspective some of the solutions that the industry is working and we are working on. So starting with investments on capability to build fixed bottom wind farms. So Subsea7 has a subsidiary that is focused on that. There is a huge amount of investment on new assets, and it's a tricky investment because the turbine sizes keep growing very fast. So and an asset take a few years to be produced, to be ready, and sometimes when we get the assets, the turbines are bigger. So there's a challenge there, but we have a lot of more than a decade of experience, and we are top tier player. We also are exploring other ways to participate as shareholders on some wind farms and developing some technologies for floating wind, for example. In the group, we also offer specialized knowledge on the development planning, advice to the energy clients on how to do this planning, considering constructability, considering how to implement the project. And we also have some solutions about how to integrate wind and hydrogen with some concepts that are floating, some concepts that are movable, and even some considering harvesting other forms of energy that are on early stages, but we are already trying to investigate that. So in summary, I think Brazil has a huge potential on oil and gas and renewables, as we seen and we are hearing about, to become really a top player on this and fuel our economic progress. The oil and gas part is affordable and is low carbon on a world scale in Brazil. We need to take care of the pace we explore and think about how to handle the new frontiers if we want to have, take the opportunity, this window of opportunity of a few decades while the mix of energy really transitions. Gas can play an important role. Brazil has already a clean energy matrix, but the gas can help the intermittency of the renewable system. So, and it's important that the open market develops, and the connectivity is something important as well for the gas to reach the consumer points from where they are produced. Renewables offshore are starting to advance, following onshore. We don't know. Was mentioned here 7 to 10 years maybe for offshore renewable project here. So to embed the lessons from other countries and to have economic projects is really the key. The energy industry is under a great pressure, the supply chain, the whole supply chain, and nowadays they are facing constraints on finance side, on the human resource sides even, and it's important that all the links of the supply chain have a balanced contractual model to be able to support the implementation of this transition. And my final point is that Subsea 7 believes in Brazil, believes that this business will materialize, and it's about having the solutions ready to make this transition possible on the offshore side, which is where Subsea 7 takes its role. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Daniel. You know, very, very impressive presentation, very well structured and very didactical. I don't know if this word exists in English, but I think it is very didactical. I like that very much. Look, to the audience, I'm here just more for the introductions, right? Just to solve any problems here, to make you happy as well. But please, any questions, please stand up if you could. Please, Clarice, and name and company. The EIC, I know you for a long time.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting to hear all the challenges that and how you're addressing the carbon targets. But one thing I would like to know, especially representing the Energy Industries Council and the suppliers, what's the role each of you see of the supply chain in helping you achieve those targets? So,
Adriano, please.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for your question. If you recall that slide, that is an old slide converted to a green slide, that is how we use our project management, or structure project management into reducing our overall emissions, there is a strong message there of collaboration. As was mentioned before by my colleagues, there is no silver bullet. We cannot fix the energy transition with a single solution. Every single element of the matrix needs to be considered and need to be improved. And we cannot do by ourselves. We need to do by collaboration. And collaboration is help the supply chain, help the service providers, help the consumers, and help the society to change. And remember, is we are facing a extremely difficult challenge. That means, how can we address the energy transition without forgetting the energy starvation? We have part of our society that consumes 70 times more energy than the other. So the other ones will develop it themselves. Now we have around like 3.84 billion people below poverty line around the world. The moment that sector of our society start to consuming energy, then we need to provide. And providing consuming the way we do today is not feasible. So it's a collaboration from every single part of our society. It's not only providing more energy or replacing the amount of energy we do today from fossil fuels, from renewables, but how we use the energy sources in a more efficient way. So, and the provider has an integral part on that solution.
Can I comment?
Monique, of course, and Daniel as well.
All right. Well, the first thing is about having our supply chain with us in this journey, this decarbonization journey. And I think that the targets that we are setting ourselves, all the plans that we have, we will need to have them on board. And I really enjoyed, what Daniel just presented about what Subsea 7 is doing. I think this is one thing. The second is that this thing about energy transitions, this journey, of course, this is not going to be smooth. When we think about 2050, there will be turbulence. And we've seen COVID, we've seen, the conflict in Europe with Ukraine, and all of that. These are unexpected, but that's how the world, plays out. So there will be turbulences. And I'm saying this because I think that we need to learn how to adapt. And as we are doing this, our supply chain also will need to adapt in this transition. So I think having them on board is important. And the last comment that I wanted to make is that we are also suppliers. When we started selling gas in Brazil this year, it was really interesting that one of our clients, they got back to us and said, we are going to start working with our suppliers in the net zero journey. So we want to learn and to know what you are doing to become a net zero emissions. And we thought, oh, that's amazing. Let's tell them what we are doing. But I think that's the kind of relationship and approach. It's not like one company or the major energy companies doing things. It's really about everybody. And Daniel, again, I really enjoyed what you presented because I like the way, how all the solutions were connected with everything that we are talking about here.
Very interesting slides.
Yes,
so Daniel, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think this is a huge endeavor to go through the energy transition. We need all the help of the whole society and the whole supply chain, the whole chain actually of the oil and gas and the energy involved on that. Of course, the ones that are on the top of this chain, they have to support. And it's good that sometimes we are in the position of client, sometimes we are in the position of a supplier, and we need to help all these links of the supply chain to debottleneck, to have visibility to do long-term investments. We need to provide access to financing because this is really drying up at the moment. And we need to keep investing on people to have the right skills to execute all that. So having engineering and having project management and having people that are experts in more types of energy, all that needs to come for the whole progress that we in the targets we are setting for ourselves to happen.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm translating your name, Daniel, but it's Daniel. Sorry about that. But look, shall we now go for questions? Peixoto, please.
Thank you. It is
your name and company. Name and company.
My name is Carlos Peixoto. My company is H2 Helium, and I am with the Britcham. It is very refreshing to see the market leaders actually exercising leadership. And awareness is one of the key points. And next week, we are going to have the first CCS, the Brazilian CCS Congress on the 20th. And by the way, Shell is helping us with it. My question is, the three of you, I saw Daniel put the CCS, the CCUS there, and briefly, could you explain to this audience what we are doing in terms of carbon capture specifically?
We've been working on several projects in terms of carbon capture. As usual, nothing is that easy. No? They're very easy on paper, and then we start having all the issues, mainly on how to store and in the long term, in terms of capacity, volume, locations. And there is, again, not a single simple solution. And the latest project we have, Peixoto, is in Houston, with Lind, if I'm not mistaken, where we're helping them to capture the CO2 of their compound and injecting on a dry reservoir nearby. There was a unique combination of having a hub where we have a higher center of CO2 generation and also a reservoir, dry reservoir close by that can be used for storage. It is a interesting concept, okay? But we still need to work in order to become efficient. One thing that, let me divert and I'll come back to the point, is we can do anything to put our mindsets to it. However, the overall impact to the environment needs to be lower than the original source. If you start using more energy to store and to capture and store that CO2, in the end, the impact on the environment is negative. So in spite of being an interesting concept of capturing the CO2, inject somewhere and store, eliminate the overall impact, but sometimes depends where you are, distances, lack of reservoir, or lack of place to store the CO2, or even the logistic to capture in order to have enough volume to make that economic, sometimes plays against the idea. So, but we have few projects. The latest one is in Houston with land. But doesn't mean that cannot be used. I was a couple of days ago, in fact, a couple of weekends ago, on the center west of Brazil, in a small place where a mill, ethanol from corn mill, is doing a CCUS because their market is California. Therefore, the carbon tax of California would pay for the solution. So depends where you are, and depends on the application, depends on everything. But what needs to be important for us as a society to understand is the overall impact of the solutions that we are proposing. Okay.
Thank you, Adrian. Monique and Danielle, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I think from a technology, costs, and policy perspective, I want to make a few comments. First, from technology, we need to scale it up. We need to make it viable, and we do have a facility, the Quest facility in Canada, which I learned, by the way, just a month ago, that we are making money, with CCS in Canada. Yes, we are. Because this is also related to the environment that we have, and we do have a carbon tax over there, which makes it really, interesting. So the technology is in place, but we need to make it to scale that, as I mentioned. And we just announced it in Europe, in Norway, by the way, with Total and Equinor, Northern Lights, which is going to be also a major project, CCS project, in Norway. So we are learning with that while deploying it, and we want to make it happen. Cost is, of course, still a challenge, so that's why we need to learn with that. But I want to bring it to Brazil, because that's my area policy. And the point here in Brazil is that, first of all, we do not have a carbon pricing. We need to remember that, because this is one of the incentives, that we might see in the sector to go for CCS. This is an important one, and we are not there yet. The second is about policy, because we can capture the CO2, we can transport the CO2 based on the regulations, the existing ones, but we cannot store it. We don't have, nowadays, a regulatory framework for storage of CCS in Brazil. So this year, we have a bill of law in Congress that is very new, but proposing, something for that, specifically for storage. We are, by the way, through IBP and through other associations, contributing to that. The Congress that Peixoto mentioned that is going to take place next week is being hosted by CCS Brazil, which is a brand new association led by Natalia and Isabella. We spoke with them. We said that this is a very important movement because we need to start talking about this. And the last thing that I wanted to say is also that we I mentioned the industry, you know, and the push that they have to make their transition. I'm talking about mining sector, you know, steel, I'm talking about cement. All of those sectors, they have a big challenge. And how they are going to capture, you know, so mining, I'm looking at Osorio now. Yes, he knows about this because this is a challenge. So how can we help them, you know, with those solutions to capture that CO2? But then we need to store it, you know. So there are lots of, I think, building blocks to that conversation. But just like I mentioned about offshore wind, if we don't start today, if we don't have, first of all, the policy in place, investors are going to, you know, to be quite afraid of doing anything. So this is a bit of where we are, we should.
Many thanks, Monique.
Yes, quickly, I think the way Subsea 7 is supporting that is basically helping to reverse the path of the gas, take the CO2 from onshore and bring and store it under the seabed. So we are also participating on this Northern Lights project. And our role there is exactly that, to build the infrastructure to take the CO2 from onshore and put it down under the seabed. And the other one that we are working in Brazil is about subsea separation of the CO2 from the produced gas to, you know, right away on the source to put it back, re-inject it. That's the Petrobras HICEP concept that Subsea 7 is also working with partners to bring it to life in a real project. So I think those are the two examples of what we are working on CCUS at the moment. The US and the United States is a place where this is becoming a big topic, and so we have presence there as well, and working to participate on that market.
Thank you, Daniel. Any more questions from the audience? Oh, we got one there. Please state your name and company.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Leonardo from Royal IHC. Thank you for the invitation for being here. My question is more directed to Daniel, but it reflects on everyone else. As Daniel for sure know, but probably some people here don't, Royal IHC supplies mission vessels and equipments for the installation of subsea equipments. And we have also equipment and ships regarding this market of cable installing and offshore industry. I just would like to know if you already are looking into this kind of equipment, make projections of what kind of equipment you need, and so on. If you can give some information about that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's working. Yeah. In the offshore wind, things have been very, very dynamic. The size of the equipments have been growing very fast, which is a challenge for anyone that's trying to develop equipment plants to deal with this kind of equipment. It really has been doubling, tripling in size very quickly, and sometimes when you have the investment ready, the turbines and the equipments are already bigger than the capacity. But at the moment, Subsea 7 is investing on a big capex program to build four or five new vessels, specifically for the offshore renewables arena, with a different concept because the key on the offshore wind thing is industrialization and scale. So things need to be very efficient to be able to be economic and be able to be feasible. So at the moment we have this big program of vessels that are being built, and we hope to contribute with that to the growing market of offshore wind.
Thank you, Leonardo and Daniel. Adriano, Monique, any comments? Or you don't need to do, but it's covered. It's covered. Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Oh, we have Nick Burridge. Oh, I've already said your name. Sorry, Nick. Name and company.
You missed the title. So, Nick Burridge, Dois Chapéus, two hats today, CFO of Vast Infrastructura, and also president of Britcham here in Rio. Firstly, thank you very much for the presentation. It's fantastic, a lot of information there. I think one thing that came very clear is the size of the challenge we have in front of us. And I think with any transition, energy transition, being one of those, one of the main challenges are going to be developing the skill sets necessary for this transition. So I'd like to take advantage of having three fantastic traditional British oil and gas companies here to ask the following question. Andre, you already mentioned the question of project management can be one skill set that we can clearly transfer from oil and gas to energy transition. But how transferable do you see the skill set from the oil and gas companies to the skills that we're going to require in the energy transition? That's my question.
I can start. We have a bigger challenge than that. So the industry is a proven industry to put pieces of steel together and different. We start drilling wells with a piece of steel in a wire a few years ago, and to drill wells at 3,000 meters of water depth and going through geological challenges like salt, faults, etc., etc. The issue is more towards digitalization. The issue is new ways of working. So the way we used to work, the way we started a few years ago, and sometimes we notice that we've been offshore longer than some of our audience being alive, so they start like thinking twice. But it's a new society. The way they communicate, the way they organize themselves, the way they interact, the digitalization of the process. This is much more difficult for us to transform so we can attract the top talents. The skill set from oil and gas to renewables, we can do it. We proved before we can do it. Not only our industry, other industry has done so. The issue is how can you continue to attract and retain the top talents that 30 years from now, former younger star, you'll be here making this pitch. Or if you don't do so, we're going to become obsolete. Now become dinosaurs and you die. The big challenge is how can us at BP can transform ourselves to become attractive to the youngest and bring this new idea, this digitalization, this fast thinking, out of the box, disruptive, that can bring us to the next challenges. We've been around the block for 111 years, but what brought us here is not going to take us there. So it's not, again, with the risk of being repetitive, we are not exactly concerned about transferring skills. What we concern, how can we change ourselves to continue to attract the top talents and the youngsters in order to bring us to the next 111 years.
Thank you, Adriano. Monique, you're quite an example of that, isn't it?
Yes,
and then Danielle,
I've worked 15 years with oil and gas, and then for the past 7 years I've been working with renewables. We see different, the challenge actually, the company is of course changing, and we do need some capability that we do not have inside Shell, of course, because we haven't done that for the past decades. So we are hiring a lot, of this bringing this new capability. But we do see, especially here in Brazil, we've created, I don't know, about 50 positions lately for renewables, our Shell Energy business. And we have, brought a lot of the talents that we've got nowadays in the company into these new positions, new functions, because, yes, there are lots of synergies, and the opportunities that we can build inside. And I think there is a specific need, but also there is a reality of different geographies. Like in Europe, we face the challenge that we are seen as an oil company. And we tell talents, look, the reality is changing. And if you have, some kind of criticism, come work with us and help us change, because that's what's happening. Watch out. This is not the old view. You need also to, change your view about what's going on. To shift that, yes, this is important. But of course, we do need new talents. It's been, especially here in Brazil, it's been hard to attract and to retain talents. This is a reality that we are, I think all the sectors are facing. But we have been transferring a lot of this capability inside.
Thank you, Monique. Daniel, and then we'll have to finish right after.
Yeah, quickly, I think Subsea is also transferring a lot of people from the group, from the side that was working on the oil and gas to renewables. So it's a lot about the engineering capability, it's a lot about the project management capability, the systems thinking, the systems designing. But more broadly, I think we are, as the energy industry, we are competing with the big tech industry, and we are competing with the finance industry, which are let's say, the richest industries, and they are very dynamic, they are very digital, and they attract a lot of our young talents. But I think energy is a really important topic that maybe we have to do a better job of advertising how relevant energy is for our lives, from producing and preparing our food to heating or cooling our homes, to making us possible to move around. So it's a lot, it's hard to underestimate the importance of energy in our lives, and maybe we have to bring that more to light for for the people that's coming out of university, to be closer to them, be present, showing what we do there. So it's something that we've been doing for a while, attracting young talents to start their career at Subsea 7, and I think this is something that we can do as an industry to highlight the importance of the energy sector from the ones that pop up in their minds probably first, of finance and big techs, which is highly digital. They are really into it at the moment.
Thank you, Daniel. Unfortunately, I have to finish that. I've already been chased after Fabrício and the team to finish. I would like you, first to you, those were brilliant presentations indeed, right? It's really a pleasure to see you live here on the stage. Now I would like to ask you a big hand. Thank you for the questions as well, for these brilliant presentations and answers here. Thank you so much, and then I have a small gift after that. There's a small gift from the Chamba. Ladies first. Ladies first. Helps with networking. Obrigado, Ana. Obrigado, Ana. Obrigado, Daniel. Excelente. Fantástico.